Flipping the 2050 coin, Gelinkosi will be 78 years old. UD Similane will be 73 years old. Mandi Sambambo will be 71 years old. Kate Musima will be 68 years old. Salome Masuwa will be 66 years old. Sana Supa will be 66 years old. Tembelihle Lihle Sokele will be 64 years old. Zoliswa Nkonyana, who was stoned to death in 2006, will be 63 years old. Noxolo Nogwaza, who was stabbed and stoned to death in 2011, will be 63 years old. Duduzile Zozo will be 63 years old. Disebo Makabu will be 60 years old. Pumeza Golonzi will be 60 years old. Ntsiki Chacheka will be 60 years old. Noktula Khatebe will be 59 years old. Our real scenario is of murdered Black lesbians who have been deprived the right to see 2050 and to celebrate their birthdays with their loved ones. They have all been brutally murdered in less than a decade in horrific hate crimes incidents across the country, which happen to be my country, a democratic South Africa. The best case scenario, however, will be ensuring that we don't have a generation joining this heartbreaking list. One dream we have for Jan 1, 2050 is that no family will bury their queer child or LGBTI human being who happened to be somebody's daughter, who happened to be somebody's lover, happened to be somebody else's aunt, etc. Like the family of Zozo, who in 2013 in Thokoza Township, Johannesburg, her body was found across the road from her mother's house. She's been murdered, and her perpetrators, or the murderers, they shoved in a toilet brush in her vagina to kill evidence. Another wishful scenario that springs to my mind when envisioning 2050 is that the transphobic, homophobic, xenophobic leaders who are currently in power will be too old, retired, or dead to judge, condemn, and attack us. The worst case scenario is that mothers will keep on bearing their Black lesbian daughters in South Africa while their cases remain unresolved, denying justice to families and loved ones, leaving children motherless and orphaned because of their parents' sexuality. In this scenario, Black lesbians will continue to be beaten, cursed, paralyzed, butchered, curatively raped, and murdered due to lesbophobic hate crimes. More violations and brutal violence will be inflicted due to gender expression and sexuality in South Africa. The worst scenario is that 2050, we might still be forced to witness crime scenes of lesbian murders and attend funerals to document the realities of pain and loss. The worst scenario for 2050 will be persistence of ignorance and lack of education. In this scenario, the prefix "this" will continue to rule our lives, that lesbian bodies being discarded, survivors being disfigured. Disrespect for the lives and bodies of hate crime victims, their loved ones, and society will rule supreme as perpetrators display their disapproval of how we should live our lives. It will indeed be a worst scenario if Africa continues to experience a brain drain, with professionals continuing to relocate to other countries because they are discouraged from living openly as they are fearing for their safety. Moving away from the negatives and embracing the positive, the ongoing documentary an increasingly visible body of work will succeed in creating a new, different, and necessary archive, writing the South African LGBTI community into a visual history from which we were previously absent. The best case scenario is that LGBTI education, writing, and understanding will dominate our global society, while galleries and museums actively drive multicultural queer content. We will live, learn, and share ideas with activists in the continent who are no longer forced to flee their bad countries because of homophobia, because of lesbophobia, because of transphobia, because of xenophobia. Yes, I can see a beautiful scenario where Africa no longer relies on international assistance or aid to provide much needed fund, but can utilize African resources for self-sustenance and growth. I see pen, paper, and cameras replacing the preferred lethal guns and knives used in too many violent crime incidents in South Africa and beyond. I wait eagerly for the day when local qualifications carry as much worth and respect as international academic qualifications, especially if the dissertation, thesis, and research are done in Africa. African and Black South African queers will be in possession of skills and training, making it easy for companies to hire queer employees. It will be the most progressive if LGBTI community members are spread out to different industries so that we will always be represented. Here, future generations will take ownership of our stories and voices, and the next generation of activists will work together to speak out against any form of oppression. I see people enjoying the freedom to venture into diverse work practices that document, archive, and explore queer sexualities without having their funding declined. It will work in society's favor if political activists have access to resources and not to be denied progress because of the nature of their work. In my vision of 2050, I see us creating children's books with understanding that homophobia is exacerbated by the lack of relevant educational materials and resources. Children will be educated progressively and learn from a young age that homosexuals are their mothers, are their sisters, are their aunts, are their brothers, classmates, and neighbors, teachers, pastors, and that random person on the street. One of the vital skills that help people to remain in control is producing and sharing of knowledge with the success and progress of platforms such as my collective Nkanyiso. LGBTI people will not have to rely on mainstream media to have their issues addressed, often exposing and making them vulnerable to sensationalism. Medical journals still have insufficient information and research when it comes to lesbian studies. That will be changed by 2050, allowing for health departments to deal with and curb issues such as cervical cancer and other pertinent matters. It means that people like me and people who identify as lesbians, gay, bisexuals, and intersex people should be counted in that historical document without the fear and allergies of those who are in positions of power. In my vision for 2050, the needs of Black lesbians, speaking as one, and all the TIQ individuals will no longer be confined to the margins. We will create new knowledge, whether academic or social, in brackets, organic intellectuals who are feeding academia with their voices, will create and share their open-mindedness And there's a need for those that are willing to collaborate with them to listen, respect, and recognize their needs. We will have full access and ensure that every political, social, economical, technological, legal spaces are for our healthy visibility and safe from harm haunting our everyday reality. With that said, I'd like to invite all the writers at PEN 2050 to join forces with us in order to ensure that we reach that healthy 2050, to come on board and write queer, LGBTQIA narratives and visualize our lives because our voices matter just like yours. We are you. Thank you.